Good Monday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. I hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Browns come back from Indianapolis with a win. A win is a win is a win. It was against an AFC team on the road. And let's head into the locker room. Kevin Stefanski addressing his team. Then we'll also hear from Stefanski on the other side of that about getting the second win in a row.
You know what I saw? You know what I saw? You know what that one took? You know what that one took? It took guts. 60 minutes. That's hard. Give me that game ball, Corey. Where are you? I'm going to get the first one. Talk about guts. The old man was on one leg, and he was not going to be denied on that last play. Kareem Hunt, where are you?
Hey, we still got a lot more to come, man. So I'm excited. I love y'all boys. Let's keep this rolling.
Okay, how about this dude? Not only does he make smoothies last night, and then he comes out, he goes 4 for 4 with a long of 58. Where is
Smoothies on me.
Okay, running out of superlatives. 9 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, 1 PBU, and a blocked kick.
That's player of the month right there. That's player of the month.
Hey, man, this for all of us. And I said this to the D-line, but no chasing history. We making history. Let's keep doing what we doing. Browns on 3. 1, 2, 3. Browns.
Gutty win wasn't always pretty, but really pleased with how the team fought. I thought, the couple things to point out, I thought the 2 drives at the end of either half were huge, and those were offense, defense, special teams aided drives to get those points. Some unbelievable individual efforts throughout on all 3 sides of the ball. So really proud again of just going on the road, finding a way to win.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. And Jeff, you know what they call a win where you get some breaks and you didn't play terribly well and it's on the road? A win.
Look, they all ain't got to be pretty. And, as much as, obviously the week before against San Francisco, you were talking a 60-minute effort. Obviously, big break for the Browns late in that game that gives them the win this week. And I think if you would ask anybody the way the script would have gone for that game yesterday, I don't think anybody thought you would have saw a game where at almost 80 total points. I don't think anybody saw a game where Deshaun Watson would have been out of the game as quickly as he was. Then there were players, like Kareem Hunt, obviously scoring 2 touchdowns, one of them out of the Wildcat formation, having to reinvent the entire offense on the fly the way they had to do. Yes, Deshaun left the game early, and obviously P.J. Walker had a very, very limited practice week himself. And then you just get the absolute, freak of nature. I mean, we've seen people block field goals like that in the past. Cam Chancellor comes to mind, but, taking like a 9-yard walk to the line of scrimmage, timing everything perfectly. Miles just basically kangaroo hopped over a guy who was 6'4", 310 pounds. I mean, there's, and Coach obviously said it in the speech, you're running out of superlatives. There's just I think to this point, there's just nothing Myles Garrett could do on a football field that would absolutely surprise anyone at this point.
And again, 4-2. So that's a good thing, 4-2, and it's also a conference win. Deshaun Watson, as you mentioned, he didn't make it through the first quarter. Talked about the big hit on his throwing shoulder and Kevin Stefanski's decision to hold him out and keep him on the sidelines.
I mean, of course, I want to compete. I'm a competitor. I want to go out there and try to help the team as much as possible and go out there and play and perform and compete. But, the decision was best for, the team, and they felt that was the best. And, PJ did a great job of finishing the game, and everyone else played a heck of a job to get the win.
Was there any point during the play when you rolled out to your left and tried to throw, you knew you might put yourself into?
No, I wasn't thinking that. Like I told you guys, maybe not you, but like I told the media before, if I'm going to step on the field, I don't want to have anything holding me back and be handicapped. And, he had a great week of preparation, and we felt that it was the best opportunity for me to come back this week. And, I just wasn't able to finish the game. Wasn't even worried about the head. It was mostly the shoulder. So I guess my head hit off the turf, and the spotter from up top had calmed me down to get evaluated, and we did that. So from what they told me, I cleared that the first time. I'm praying that it wasn't anything worse. So that's all I can do right now, just continue to send prayers up and, see what happens tomorrow.
And Jeff, doesn't sound great. The shoulder is it's pretty significant. You could tell he can't throw the ball.
No, I mean, everything was coming up short. There was no accuracy on the balls he was throwing. He rolled obviously the 2 interceptions and obviously almost was even 3, which was crazy. And I said it last week on my show, and I just felt that what you saw, and look, granted, we don't get to see all of practice. And I understand there's a large amount of pressure, obviously, with the amount of money that Deshaun makes. And the fact that you're thinking about the last time Deshaun played for you against the Tennessee Titans, which is the best he's looked for this team, and you feel that player is there and he's ready to just break out. But then you also, when he went down, my first thought was similar to, if everybody remembers the Cardinals game back in 21, that's when you realized that Baker was not going to be able to continue the season at the pace he was going and be anything close to effective for this team. And I think after the few passes that he threw that didn't work out, obviously the hit that he took, I think that's when Coach Stefanski said, maybe I'm putting a guy out there that maybe truly can't defend himself right now. And look, practice is one thing, and you're not going to touch the quarterback. And if you do touch the quarterback, obviously you're in big time trouble. But I think once they got out there and they saw him in live action, they realized that maybe he was not ready to go. So you had to scrap everything on the fly. And PJ obviously came in. I would say due in the circumstances, PJ Walker probably played admirable. And the most important thing is that you got the double W, so nobody's really going to basically go through PJ's stat line. We understand he's not playing that great, but he is 2-0 at this point, quarterbacking this team. But losing Deshaun was difficult. It is. But now your hope is when can you get him back? And there are other thoughts here that you have to think about when you could possibly get him ready. But the quarterback position as a whole for the Browns right now, this is a discussion to be had because the way this defense is going, and look, yesterday was not their greatest day. They did enough, obviously, to find a way to change the momentum of that game. But you can't expect, for the next 11 games here that the defense is just going to get you a W week in, week out. You're going to have to get something out of your quarterback.
Yeah, without question. All right. As you can imagine, plenty of people with opinions about this. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, Mike from West Virginia. Time to ditch 4. $230 million guaranteed. He has no desire to play football anymore, and it's a circus now. Trade this guy. Pay half his salary on that stupid decision. Let AB get on the phone with Washington first thing Monday morning and get Jacoby Brissett in here so we can take advantage of this great defense and these great skilled players that we have. I'm sick and tired of looking at 4. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. We have a Super Bowl team and a quarterback that don't want to be in cold weather or whatever it is. He just needs to go. Thanks, Dave. Take care.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. And again, I get people's opinion of it. I disagree. I don't think it has anything to do with his desire to play. I think he is a lot more beat up than most people realize.
Well, none of us truly know the significance, and obviously, this is the test is always time. Nobody knows how much pain is in that arm. What we can see is is it affecting the way he throws the football? And what we saw yesterday was certainly affecting the way he threw the football. It was affecting his velocity. It was affecting his accuracy. Is this anything similar to what Baker went through? No, it's not. It's a lot different than what Baker went through. Baker, we knew the ultimate end was he was going to have surgery to fix his arm. For Watson, it was a question at the time whether, some people said 3 to 6, some people said 3 to 8. And all the bruising and the tears kind of have to heal. Was he rushed back yesterday? We don't truly know the answer to that, but obviously looking at the turnout yesterday, looking at his play yesterday, maybe it does look like he was rushed back. I think the Browns thought that they had a game that they were probably going to handle pretty easily, and they could kind of let him get in there and play for the first time in a month, because it's been over a month since we saw Deshaun Watson play. And it was going to be okay if he was rusty. It was going to be okay if there was a mistake or two. But then once he took that hit, and whether I don't know if it was necessarily on the bad shoulder, but he took a bad hit. Obviously, his head snapped back. And obviously cooler heads prevailed as far as the Browns were concerned and said, all right, well, let's get this guy out of here and live to fight another day. As far as getting out of this deal, you're not getting out of it. You can't get out of this deal right now. I mean, Deshaun Watson has one solid start under his belt for this team at this point, as nobody else is, coming to knock on the door for Deshaun Watson. And as great as the caller's idea was of paying him half his salary, $230 million guaranteed is $230 million guaranteed. So he's not going to take half of his money. He's going to take all of his money.
Yep. All right. The thing that everybody saw, Browns 4 cracks at it on the goal line, basically 4th and goal late in the game, and it was a run by Kareem Hunt from about the 1 that got in. Brian Baldinger breaks down what went on in that touchdown run.
Maybe the most exciting game of the year, 4th and 1, with a chance to win the game. Nick Harris at fullback. Hudson at the tight end. Wills, Batonio. Here they come. Kareem Hunt. 4th and 1. They got to get the ball past the goal line. Right there, I think the ball's past the goal line. Like it's all or nothing. They just had 3 straight incompletions. They said, you know what? In this dramatic finish, to win the game, this is what we're going to do. We're playing power football. Look at the base on Nick Harris. Here comes Wyatt Teller and Harris around him. Just plow their way into the end zone right here. And Kareem Hunt just keeps that balance going and stretches that ball across the goal line. And just like that, the Browns come up with the photo finish.
And again, love the extra lineman, Harris in the backfield, the tight end Hudson. They're probably going to have to continue to do that to run the football effectively, and I'm glad they don't hesitate to do that.
Well, this is a team, there were years where the Browns employed a fullback. They no longer employ a fullback. There has to be things you can do around the goal line. And when you came to that, I know a lot of people were questioning why the Browns didn't run earlier. But if you go back to right before half, if you do remember, P.J. Walker, came out of the shotgun, basically dropped back and basically just threw a Hail Mary out of the back of the end zone. So, the Browns in that instance were trying to, basically cook as much clock as they possibly could. Maybe they were also trying to do the same thing there at the end of the game, cook as much clock as they possibly could. But the play itself, we pick on Jedrick Wills a lot. I think his block was huge. He absolutely erased his guy out of the picture, which allowed for Hudson, obviously, to get down and get in on a linebacker, and obviously, allowed for, Harris to basically lead his way through the hole. Kareem is, always, even when Nick was here, obviously, and healthy, and Kareem was here, Kareem was always the better guy around the goal line as opposed to Nick. And Kareem's kind of got that nose for it. Hey, he found the spot. He made sure he got the line. There was no question about whether or not it was a touchdown. There was no question about that. You knew, Kareem had the line, and just a big, big sigh of relief because, like I said, after the San Francisco game and leading up to this Colt game, as great as the high was of beating San Francisco, the low of losing to the Indianapolis Colts would have been a lot worse. So, hey, at the end, 4-2 now, as everybody starts looking towards Seattle, nobody's going to, in a few weeks here, remember what the ultimate ending was here against the Indianapolis Colts. Everybody's going to remember that the Browns beat the Indianapolis Colts.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. Love that win this Sunday, but, man, do we have some problems on offense. We went into that game being the number one pass defense Indianapolis was the 23rd pass defense. They were allowing 243 yards a game average, and somehow their pass offense was able to put up 305 yards, and ours could only manage 183. What is going on? Is it the quarterback? Is it the line? Is it the receivers? Is it the scheme? I mean, someone's got to be looking at these game films and seeing everything going on in the field to have some kind of idea of what the heck is going on. We got to get it figured out. So go Browns. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, the offense, he's asking why the offense hasn't performed. You got a guy that in P.J. Walker that hasn't played a lot. You don't have Nick Chubb, and you don't have Jack Conklin. So you're trying to figure out what you have that can be successful on a consistent basis, and they still haven't figured it out, clearly. Obviously, some problems with Jeff, so we'll see if we can work on that.
At 10:40 in the morning against the Baltimore Ravens, you had a quarterback informed that he was going to start the game. So that is when that obviously DTR found that he was going to start the game. Barely practiced all week, got thrown into the mix, obviously with a little bit above, under the water himself. P.J. Walker practiced for the San Francisco 49ers game, had a pretty good game. Obviously, if you go to some of the metrics, it didn't necessarily pan out. Now you get to yesterday, P.J. Walker's in the game with about 5 minutes gone in the first quarter, and here was another quarterback who essentially was not prepared. Do I expect these guys to play at the same level of Deshaun Watson? No, but I mean, you have to factor in the fact that these guys are not practicing. Certainly has a lot to do with it. Certainly is becoming an issue. The Browns, their instance and hope is that Deshaun Watson starts every game. That's just not realistic right now. But it's hard to have all three quarterbacks ready to go at any given time. We saw it against the Ravens. We certainly saw it yesterday against the Colts. The pass defense, look, Gardner Minshew, the thing with Gardner Minshew is there's times where Gardner Minshew, you can watch him, and a lot of people say, well, you know what? Why isn't he a top 30, 31? Why isn't he a guy who's possibly starting in this league? And that's what you saw yesterday. The week before against the Jacksonville Jaguar, where he throws 3 ugly balls for interceptions, is the week where you say, oh, that's why, Gardner Minshew is what he is. And keep in mind the first touchdown yesterday, Josh Downs, when, Myles Garrett went offsides, pretty much all 11 guys quit. There's no excuse for it. It's inexcusable to do. But I think everybody feels if Myles Garrett is even close to committing an offsides penalty, the refs are going to blow it dead right away. And probably rightfully so, because he's 6'5" and 285 pounds. You don't want him getting a free shot on anybody. But that happened twice in that game. And it's just completely inexcusable. It cannot happen. The Browns twice thought the play was going to be blown dead, so they didn't play the play to the 100% mark. And that came back to bite them twice. But yeah, there's going to be weeks. They're not invincible, this Browns defense. Teams are going to have some success against them. I think it was just a shock that as well as they played against the San Francisco 49ers, obviously they came back against the Colts, and obviously the Colts, gave them a pretty good, run for their money.
So take a look at this. This is a graph that shows offensive EPA and defensive EPA. Offensive EPA is the x-axis. Defensive EPA, the y-axis. So defense is up and down and offense is across. You want the good news or the bad news? The good news, Jeff, is that the defense is far and away the best unit in terms of expected adjustment per play. The offense, it's in the same area as Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, and Tyrod Taylor, Kenny Pickett, and Zach Wilson. That's not a good neighborhood to be in if you're a playoff team. That graphically shows you how much this offense has struggled and who they are comparable to.
Well, again, you go to it now where you had 2 quarterbacks other than Deshaun Watson that played half the games to this point. Now, what would be something that would offset the fact you didn't have Deshaun Watson under center? It would be having Nick Chubb at running back. We know Nick Chubb has covered up a bunch of deficiencies for this team over the years. But when you play without both of them, it really, obviously, it shows the level of the skill talent around them. But even yesterday, you couldn't get a guy like Amari Cooper involved. Amari Cooper has been really, really solid at this point. They couldn't find a way to get him involved. They really couldn't find a way to get Elijah Moore involved. The running game, even though Jerome Ford had a 69-yard touchdown, he finished with 11 carries for 74 yards, which means on his other 10 carries, he netted 5 positive yards. they're going to have to figure it out, and they're just going to have to keep getting better at it. I do think the good thing here is I don't think this offense can get any worse, honestly. So you have to think that there's probably the bright side is it can probably only get better from here. But the key to it all, and it was going to be this way anyway. This team was going to evolve more into a Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns offense. Browns going to need to figure out when he's going to be 100%. And for the Cleveland Browns, hopefully it's Sunday or at least the week after.
All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, what's up, Dave? What a game. Had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I want to make two statements. What do you think about trading for Jacoby Brissett? Because when we had Jacoby wasn't the reason we were losing football games. We all know it was the defense and special teams, and we actually had a top 10 offense. Secondly, I'm not of the fire Stefanski crowd. I know sometimes the offense could look stagnant, but we have to keep in mind what he's been working with. P.J. Walker is not somebody where we're depending on him to win football games for us. And I think Stefanski deserves some credit. He's been working hard to have the Browns 4-2. Hey, go Browns.
And so take a look at this. This is kind of along the lines of Jacoby Brissett. So it's week 7, reactions and overreactions. Commanders, Ron Rivera needs to bench Sam Howell for Jacoby Brissett if he wants to keep his job. The verdict from the ESPN folks that is not an overreaction. They delineate why they think Brissett would be a good idea for them. Jeff, when you look at it, you can't expect Jacoby Brissett to come back and do what he did last. He had Nick Chubb last year, so that's the other thing you got to remember. This is going to be Jacoby Brissett with the pieces that are in place.
Yes, but it's also going to be Jacoby Brissett with the league's #1 defense. And from the Redskins' point of view is, one thing we did see from Jacoby Brissett when he was under center for the Cleveland Browns last year is he's not nearly as elusive as Sam Howell is. So if Sam Howell is getting sacked at the rate that he is, and I believe for Sam Howell, if it was 6 yesterday, I think it's 42 sacks to this point. So the young man's getting killed. But you can't block for yourself. But Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he's not that fleet of foot. He's certainly not a better athlete than Howell is, so I don't know how that's going to work. But as far as Cleveland possibly bringing him in, I'm all for it. I mean, number one, if you needed somebody right away, there's obviously only 2 names that you could possibly pursue to come in and that would still have enough knowledge of the playbook that could come in and be able to contribute immediately. One is Josh Dobbs. No, thank you. The other one certainly would be Jacoby Brissett. And the thing with Jacoby Brissett last year, and I agree, he wasn't, there were games where the ball was put in his shoulders. But, as I talked to you guys many times last year, there were a couple things we said week in, week out. Don't put it on Jacoby Brissett's shoulders and, don't rely on the rookie kicker. But, yeah, week in, week out, there you were with Jacoby Brissett or the rookie kicker trying to win the game because he had a defense that couldn't stop anybody. It's certainly worth pondering. And, the thing is, I don't know if there's a true when he is 100% or will he be 100% with Deshaun Watson? Because that would be the question. If he's going to be 100% and it might take another 2 weeks, I guess that's fine. You tread water, you deal with it. Or is this something where it's not going to be to where he can sit around, come January, come February and do nothing for a month and then he would be 100%?
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Shout out to the Browns defense on an amazing performance yesterday. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year. Aside from that, Deshaun Watson's looking like the worst trade in NFL history. He's had one decent game against the subpar team. Prove me wrong.
Well, the Trey Lance trade probably looks worse. Russell Wilson trade comes to mind. I get the point. The point is Watson hasn't looked like the franchise quarterback that the Browns traded for. But, Jeff, as we keep saying, the guy's hurt. It looked like he couldn't raise his arm above his head. And you can't throw if you can't do that.
And look, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, did Watson talk them into it? Did the Browns, knowing everything that's invested in Deshaun Watson, talk themselves into it? But, from the little I saw last week that they were able to put out there, and even, again, I said, then that's fine. Just get him through this practice week. And then let's bring him back for Wednesday, get a full week of practice in, and be ready to go at Seattle. Did they rush it? Obviously, it seems like now that's what they did. And Watson, obviously, look, and this is the thing, and should athletes be able to block this out? Sure. But, we live in this world now where you can't hide from anything. You know what I'm saying? Everything is out there. And even if you're trying not to find what is being said about you, whether it's good, whether it's bad, you have people in your lives who are filtering that information to you. So, Deshaun obviously knows what the naysayers are saying about him. And if the Browns went out yesterday and the Browns say without Deshaun Watson playing and say they won the game 30-16, the same reaction would have been, well, they don't need Watson. It was the worst trade in history. So, I mean, you get in a situation where, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But the Browns, make no mistake about it, they need Deshaun Watson at 100%. And look, it doesn't have to be this week. The Cardinals are the week after that. The Browns need him at 100% at some point this year to make for that final push. But these are questions we just don't have answers to right now. And I know, everybody kind of gets frustrated, but I think, I truly believe that the coaching staff is being as honest with us as possible. Because when they say day to day, they don't know. Because you know what? He didn't practice last Wednesday, but then all of a sudden he could practice Thursday. And then Friday, it looks a little better. And then all of a sudden he was starting on Sunday, but then he got hurt on Sunday. I mean, everybody wants this concrete information that just obviously is not available for everybody to be had right now.
Well, we keep talking about how good the Browns' defense has been. And again, yesterday, they gave up a lot of yards to the Colts and Gardner Minshew, a couple of plays that probably shouldn't have happened. Right now, the Browns are allowing 18.1 yards per possession this season. No team is within 6 yards of them, and the second-place Saints are closer to 19th than they are to first. Just 3 teams since 2000 have kept opposing offenses below 20 yards per drive in a full season. 2 of them won the Super Bowls. The 2002 Buccaneers did it with Brad Johnson at quarterback, and the 2008 Steelers managed it with a very young and inexperienced Ben Roethlisberger. So again, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about. This defense is good enough that you have to find a way to find a quarterback who cannot hurt you.
No question. And, I mean, it's not even, going out there and lighting it up. But, I would still say that you have to get the running game right. They're not sure now. And Jerome Ford, obviously, he's been a nice surprise. I think he's done a pretty good job to this point. But nursing an ankle injury, you saw when Coach Stefanski handed the game ball to Kareem Hunt, basically referred to him as being on one leg. I would love for them to try to get Pierre Strong a little bit more involved. They may not have a choice at this point, but to have to get Pierre Strong involved. There's a lot going on. And, the offense, and it's not a question of pulling their weight because it's not like these guys are absolutely out there tanking or they're not trying. They need to get some more consistency. And if that's going to mean just having a bigger commitment to the run, even though it's not going to be hugely successful, if it's going to be something where it's 3 yards a carry or a little bit more than 3 yards a carry. But also, it would be nice if the Browns could get a quarterback who could start the practice week on Wednesday, go through the entire practice week and be the starting quarterback on Saturday. I'm sure that would help, a lot of things. And it certainly, for the most part, help P.J. Walker at least go out there and put together a solid effort in taking down, at the time, the undefeated San Francisco 49ers.
All right, before I let you go, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason one more time.
Hey there, calling after the ugly win against Indianapolis. Feels like Cleveland's best option might just be keeping Deshaun out until the Ravens game. You get the Seahawks and Cardinals coming up. I feel like you got to just strength up your roster if Deshaun's not going to finish the game. So glad to see them win. I would hope that Deshaun is at least healthy by the Baltimore game, would be my 2 cents. So grateful for the win. Go Browns, but really just hoping that we can start hitting these divisional games and start stacking up those wins thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good day.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, I don't know that you can. I think what that game showed you is you got to see him throwing the football and throwing it with a lot of velocity before you stick him back out there. That it was pretty clear from the get-go he wasn't right.
Well, I mean, he killed a couple of worms. They looked very familiar to when he took his first start with the Browns after all that time off in Houston, where he was basically just killing some grass. Look, Deshaun Watson, there shouldn't be any sugarcoating around it. He has a strong arm. So everybody should know what Deshaun at 100% looks like in practice. And I have a hard time believing Thursday and Friday he looked like the real Deshaun Watson, and then all of a sudden something went wrong when we saw him yesterday and a little bit that he did play. They tried. It didn't work out. And I still think, and I will go back to this, that Coach Stefanski looked at that situation, went back to the Cardinal game in 2021, which Baker Mayfield ended up basically dislocating the shoulder after it was already broken, and said, you know what, I can't do this, because it would have been a bad rap for Deshaun to sit out there yesterday, have a terrible game, and it would have taken all the heat and all the criticism because he is the quarterback when he probably shouldn't have been out on the field to begin with. It's just, we'll see. I mean, obviously, day to day, 50-50, will he or won't he? But there's going to need to be vast improvement from what we saw yesterday from a little bit of Deshaun Watson before I believe he's going to be ready to go on Sunday in Seattle.
Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. We'll talk soon.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Locked On Browns podcast, always really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Tyler Johnson on the other side of the break. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Glenn, originally from Berea, calling from Utah. And I thought Stefanski had his worst play calling game this week and his best calling last week. I'm hoping that Jerome Ford's injury isn't serious, but I really hope not to see him playing much when he is healthy, because he's just been horrible. He has one good long run, and then he can't do much the rest of the season. I think Hunt and Strong have been looking much better. Wouldn't mind seeing them bring back John Kelly or Johnny Stanton, but like your show, have a good one.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tyler Johnson, Faithful Dogs podcast, as well as Network 216. Tyler, when you have a starting quarterback knocked out of the game, play calling kind of gets... And I thought he did just fine. You won with P.J. Walker and your defense giving up a bunch of yardage that you didn't expect. You find a way to win a game. there's not much else to say.
Exactly, and that's kind of the way I look at it, Dave, is, Kevin Stefanski has been put in some really tough situations since he's been Browns head coach, not only this past week, but just in general. When you have P.J. Walker coming into this game, you assumed it was going to be Deshaun Watson all game, and that's how you did prepare. But at the same time, P.J. Walker is not Deshaun Watson. And, the run game outside of that long Jerome Ford run averaged 2.5 yards per carry in this game. So outside of that one long run, the Browns struggled to run the ball consistently. That puts a lot more pressure on P.J. Walker, a lot more on Kevin Stefanski. But at the same time, there were also plays. I can remember a couple of drops by Amari Cooper. David Njoku had a drop in the end zone near the end of the game there. Like, there were calls. There were also many plays that Kevin Stefanski called. The execution wasn't there. I remember that 4th down play where P.J. Walker tries to pitch it to Jerome Ford. That play probably goes for a touchdown because that pitch, there was nobody around Jerome Ford, but it went right through Ford's hands. Browns turn it over, and that's that. So, when you look back at the game, there were plays to be made, but you're down a lot of backups, especially at running back and at quarterback. It's going to make it difficult for any play caller. So you know what? Kevin Stefanski and the Browns are 4-2. And right now, that's all I'm looking at. We're 4-2 right now. We shouldn't be in some cases, but we are. And that's all that matters.
The other thing is they went on an 80-yard drive when they needed to win the game, and they found a way to get in with 15 seconds left. So that's the biggest takeaway is there are no style points. You're 4-2, so you're 4-2. 3 takeaways from the Browns' Week 7 win against the Colts. This from the Bleacher Report. Browns are going to be cautious with Deshaun Watson, number 1. Number 2, defense finds a different way to carry the team. And number 3, defensive issues have to be fixed. A couple of those, and we alluded to this earlier, one of those long plays the Browns quit on, the first one. And the other long play, there was bad tackling. Teams are going to move. This is the NFL. There are really good players on the other side. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to get gashed.
Exactly. And, I feel like a game like this for the Browns defense was coming. I was not expecting it to be the Colts. I really wasn't. But the Browns came off the high of beating San Francisco. The defense, you heard all week how good this defense is. Everyone's saying this is the best defense in the NFL. I think sometimes in the NFL you need to be humbled, and I think that's what Sunday did for this Browns defense. You gave up so many points on Sunday, and you still won. Now, the Browns forced a lot of turnovers in this game, which was very helpful and a big reason why we were able to come away with the victory. But I think Jim Schwartz is going to really be talking to his defense this week, letting them know, kind of like you said, we've only played a certain amount of games. There are no awards given out at this point in the season. And I think they needed that message. And on Sunday, they found out that we can't just be on our high horse all the time, assuming we're going to dominate. We have to go out and do it because, it looked like to me they were kind of going through the motions a lot. At points in that game, they did come up with some key takeaways and stops when it mattered. But a lot of times the defense just, it's not the same defense we saw. But the turnovers being forced really helped. And then going back to that first point with being cautious with Deshaun Watson, that's the way you have to go because right now you're 4-2. Just do whatever you can to get him right. And then let's see where we're at here in a couple weeks.
So Dustin Hopkins, who was the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week last week, might get it again. Another really good performance. He's now 7 of 7 on 50-plus yarders. He also hit a career-long 58-yarder. When we look back at this, that might be the best acquisition next to Jim Schwartz all offseason.
Yeah, Dustin Hopkins has been absolutely phenomenal. And when we traded for him, I knew he would probably be pretty good just based off his career numbers. But the one thing that is really just taken, at least me by surprise, his percentage from 50 yards plus has been, he's just been phenomenal. And in his career, that's the only place he's really struggled. And that's understandable, because those are long kicks. But, he is just in another level this year. That trade by Andrew Berry, there were some people, like there were a couple that were like, well, why do you trade for a kicker? This is exactly why you trade for a kicker. He has been one of the most valuable members of this team this year. And he's the reason why the Browns have won 2 games this year, pretty much by his leg. So, Dustin Hopkins is a great acquisition, another great move by Andrew Berry. And keep in mind, really didn't give up much to get him. You still have him under contract for 2024. So once again, Andrew Berry just finds a way through the trade market, to bring in an impact player to the Browns.
Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast Network, 216 and I. Going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast Network, 216. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I know that the defense gave up 38 points versus the Colts, but it was kind of expected, to be honest. They had an emotionally filled game versus the 49ers last week, and I think the defense was bound to give up some points eventually. But this time the defense came through with multiple turnovers, and that's what good defenses do. And let's give it up for Miles, man. He played at an MVP level. And majority of us fans were really wondering if maybe the Browns should have sat Watson for another week and bring him back versus the Seahawks, but I think they should bring him back for the Cardinals, to be honest. I'm just excited that, our Browns finally stacking some wins. We moved to 4-2, and big shout out to Dustin Hopkins for kicking 50-plus yarders like they're chip shots. Let's go Browns. Whoop, whoop.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tyler, I said this before. You can't say they should bring Deshaun Watson back against this team, that team. He's got to be able to throw the ball, and he clearly wasn't able to throw the ball the way he needed to when they put him out on the field against Colts.
Yeah, with Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't put any timetable on it, and we've seen people trying to do that. I think the most important thing is getting to where he can drive the ball down the field. As you could see against the Colts, the interception he threw, it was open. It was late. There wasn't a lot of zip on the ball. You need to get him back to that. If that means he needs to sit down for 2 weeks for whatever it is, for what you need to put him on IR, whatever you need to do at this point in order to get him right is what the Browns need to do. I mean, coming back against the Cardinals would be great. I don't expect them to play this week. But at the same time, I think when we get later in the week, maybe we'll find out if he did re-injure that shoulder or whatever the case may be there, because that's the other thing we don't know is if he injured it further. But all we can do now is wait and just hope you continue to find ways to win. And really, that's what the Browns have done all year, is just find ways to win, even when the situation is not really very helpful to the Browns. So that's just what we have to hope for on Sunday and moving forward until Watson gets back healthy.
And Kevin Stefanski did say he's getting further tests. We'll know later in the week. All right. Brian Baldinger takes a look at that holding call that nullified the forced fumble late in the fourth quarter against the Colts.
It was absolutely dizzying trying to keep track of all the splash plays that happened in this game. But these final 30 seconds right here with E.J. Speed coming back and hitting P.J. Walker's hands and forcing that fumble, it all got called back because of this. Double move by Amari Cooper on Darrell Baker. All right, it's a good call. I mean, he clearly held him right there. So this fumble right here gets recovered by the Colts, but it's nullified. DeForest Buckner, so many great games by so many players in this game. But that started this whole final 30 seconds.
Yeah, and Tyler, I've seen people questioning and saying those are questionable calls. He had him around his waist. That's going to be called. That should be called every time. And the pass interference call, he's tugging on Amari Cooper's arm. You can't tell me, or on DPJ's arm. You can't tell me he couldn't have elevated and gotten close to that. It wasn't thrown into the seats. So both of those calls are legit. And as I say all the time when Browns fans complain about calls against them, calls go against teams every week. You find a way to win, and the Browns did.
Exactly. And as Baldy talked about right there, he clearly is holding him. Now, again, is it completely like he's pushing him down and whatnot? No. But that's still a call that is made nearly 90% of the time in that case. And the call was right. Same on DPJ, too. I know I've seen a lot of people say that call was uncatchable. It really wasn't, because if DPJ isn't tugged or held, whatever the case may be there, he might end up getting that ball and it's a touchdown. So, you know what, Dave, I'm going to take every single call, because since the Browns have been back in 1999, it seems like almost every call when the game is close goes against the Browns. So the fact that against the 49ers last week, we might have gotten a call or two, and this week, some think we got a call or two. You know what? Give me all the calls, because we're owed about 25 years worth of them, so I'm going to take them all.
Well, the other thing is you always think the calls are against you when you lose, and that's Browns have lost a lot, so that's why we've thought that the calls are against us. All right, before we go, Browns sending out reactions on that win from the field in Indianapolis.
Hey, man, look, it wasn't pretty, but a win's a win. You know? Hey,
talk to him. Best in the world, baby.
Hey, best in the world, but it's time to go home. Let's go. Thank you, Browns fan. Thank y'all for driving over to Indy, my hometown. And you know, we just took the dub, man. You see section, whatever up there, that's my family, man. We just took care of the dub.
Hey, all I can say is thank you, Lord, man. That's what a game. Everybody stepped up. Team win.
We got all these Brown fans here.
Look at all these Brown fans traveling. Appreciate y'all.
Again, that was Okunrankwo, Denzel Ward, DeWand Jones, and Dustin Hopkins. And again, great reactions.
Oh, yeah. I love seeing that. Browns fans always travel really well. And the fact the game's at Indy, it's about a 4-hour drive or so. Not too bad. I love seeing that many fans there. It sounds like even, too, there are reports that percentage-wise, the Browns fans really packed that place out in Indy. Really what you'd like to see. It's awesome. The players always thanking the fans. And DeWand Jones, I love his reaction. Can't say enough things about DeWand Jones, the way he's played as a rookie this year. And the fact that he was able to get a win in his hometown, it makes it even better. But, yeah, I love seeing videos like that. And I'm glad the Browns are posting a lot more of that type of content, because it's just awesome seeing the smiles on those players' faces when we're able to consistently stack some wins together. And you can just tell this team just seems to have a different mojo about it than in years past, I would say.
Tyler Johnson, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tyler.
My pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
Tyler Johnson, make sure you check him out. Faithful Dogs Podcast Network 216. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers getting ready to open up the NBA season. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers getting ready to open up the NBA season Wednesday on the road in Brooklyn against the Nets. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. All right, Sam, Cavs added Max Strus. They added George Niang, Ty Jerome. Rookie Amoni Bates might get some playing time. What did they add to this roster, to this team, with all the additions they made in this offseason?
The goal was to go out and get perimeter shooting and add that to the mix, reliable perimeter shooting. They really believe you have that in Max Strus and George Niang. I think that those two showed in the preseason just what they can add, not just perimeter shooting, but spacing for everybody else to operate the Donovan Mitchells and the Darius Garlands and the Evan Mobleys. So that was a priority. And really the Cavs got the two guys who were at the top of their wish list. So that was a pretty big deal for them. And then, of course, we probably will see a lot of Damian Jones, who was traded to the Cavs, center, very athletic, very cerebral player, can get in and block shots. He's not going to score a lot of points, but with the Jared Allen injury and his status for the opener and opening week up in the air, we may see a little bit of Damian Jones, and he's going to give you some physical play. So the Cavs wanted to go out and get that as well, and they feel like they got Damian Jones and Tristan Thompson to help in that area. But mostly Strus, Niang, Ty Jerome, who will serve as a backup point guard, and another perimeter shooter. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Bates, the second-round pick, has shown, yes, he's going to be able to hit outside shots. So they went out and filled needs by adding all these players.
Does it make sense? Does it make sense? And do you think it changes the way they play offensively? I guess is the second part of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what they needed to do. Now, whether or not those players, are able to execute throughout the course of the season, obviously that remains to be seen. But this is stuff that Strus and Niang have done their entire careers, which is go out and make outside shots. Niang is also a physical player. Strus is also a guy who's going to move a lot without the ball, cut to the basket. We saw some of that in the preseason. He's more than just an outside shooter. That's those guys' strengths, but they also do other things. And yes, I feel like it will benefit them and in the way that it's going to create more space for the likes of, the rest of the guys, and not just the stars, but the role players to operate a little bit, because it's going to be easier for everybody to score. So yes, Dave, it's going to change their style of play. I mean, last year you looked and it was just about all pick and roll. Now they can still pick and roll, but run a lot more off of that, variations off of that. And that's their intent. That's Coach J.B. Bickerstaff's intent is, they're going to be putting in some more wrinkles offensively, and we'll see that as the season unfolds.
So the Cavs finished fourth in the East last year, had a disappointing playoff series against Knicks, didn't play very well. What's realistic for this team to be expected of this year? What should we expect from the Cavs in the East this year?
Well, realistically, the expectation would be you take the next step and you get out of the first round. You get at least to the Eastern Conference semifinals. That's what you need to set as your goal. You always want to take that next step. But Dave, last year we saw the Miami Heat go from just about elimination in the play-in tournament all the way to the NBA Finals. So I think that that's a possibility for the Cavs. I don't think that there are 4 teams better than them in the Eastern Conference this year. Last year, even though they finished 4th in the East, I probably would have put the Knicks ahead of them at the end of the season, and we saw that in the first round of the playoffs. I think the Cavs were 5th or 6th best team in the Eastern Conference this year. I think they're in the top 4. I really do. With the additions that they've made, they'll have another year, a full year with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Everybody's expecting Evan Mobley to take that next step. Realistic expectation is you take that next step by winning a first-round playoff series and, getting to the second round. And then if you lose in the second round, well, at least you took the next step. But I think realistically, this team, despite the additions that were made by the Celtics and the Bucks, I think realistically this team could be looking at the Eastern Conference Finals if it all comes together. Because on paper, they've got a lot of depth. They've got now some experience. And again, everybody's expecting Mobley to take that next step. So that would give you 3 stars in Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley. So I think the sky's the limit, frankly.
Is that kind of and I don't want to say the key, that's kind of overused, but if Evan Mobley is able to ascend and become that, 3rd big-time player, Does that put them kind of right there with the elite?
Absolutely, because Darius Garland has to stay the same or improve a little bit for that to happen, for them to be, with the Celtics and the Bucks neck and neck. And I think that's possible. You already know what Mitchell's going to give you, which is obviously a ton of scoring, creating opportunities, keeping you in games. And so that leaves Mobley. Mobley had a nice year last year, but he really kind of needs to be, that third, I don't want to say all-star, but a guy who's at least under consideration for the all-star game, an all-star team. So in order for the Cavs to really surpass the expectations that I said they could potentially do, yes, Evan Mobley has to have, I don't want to call it a breakout year, but he has to have a big year, probably bigger than last year. And then the rest of the guys, Strus and Yang and Karis LeVert, and I'm sure I'm forgetting others, Okoro, Dean Wade, and Jared Allen. Those guys all have to have at least good years. And if they can do that, if the Cavs can do that with Mobley's development, they can go. They can really go places that people don't even expect them to at this point.
Who do you think's poised to have a breakout year or a year that might not be expected?
Well, I would go with Mobley would be the obvious answer. That's, I think people are expecting him to kind of have that big year. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jared Allen kind of come out this season because of what happened last year in the playoffs and how he was admittedly, dominated is a strong word, but that's basically what happened to him against the Knicks. They really pushed him around, were able to make him a non-factor in the playoffs. So I think he's motivated by that. I think once he gets healthy, he's obviously has a ankle issue. It's not a huge concern, but the Cavs are being cautious with it right now. He's been back at practice, or at least doing some working out. I think that Mobley is kind of the guy that, look, he's not going to have huge numbers offensively, but he is a very good defender. He does produce offensively without needing the basketball. And I just think, frankly, the guy's motivated by, how everybody wrote him off or is, kind of downplaying his impact and effectiveness after that playoff series. So I really suspect that Jared Allen would be the guy who would be poised to, exceed expectations this season.
All right, before I let you go, take a look at this. This is from NBA.com. It's predicting things in the NBA relative to a questionnaire they gave to the GMs. So team has the most promising young core according to NBA GMs. Oklahoma City Thunder, 73%. Cleveland Cavaliers, 10%. And keep in mind, the Cavs are already pretty good making the playoffs and getting that 4 seed. Do you think in Cleveland people are kind of overlooking the fact how young these guys are, and there is some internal room for even, a Darius Garland, certainly an Evan Mobley, and a Jared Allen to get better?
Sure. Yeah, they are young. They do have a promising young core, obviously, with the guys that you just mentioned. And, I mean, last year, Dave, the majority of them were playoff rookies, at least when you talk about Darius Garland, a playoff rookie, Isaac Okoro, Evan Mobley, Karis LeVert and Jared Allen had barely tasted the playoffs before they got to Cleveland. So those guys, you're talking about their core really with a lot of first-time guys in the playoffs or barely into the playoffs. J.B. Bickerstaff, barely into the playoffs before with the Rockets. So, this is really a team, when you talk about youth, maybe the Thunder are probably, the Thunder may be younger age-wise and have no playoff experience with their current group, whereas the Cavs have barely some. So I really think that that's what we forget in Cleveland. Even as a media member, Dave, I can tell you, you're so used to like the old Cavs with LeBron James. If they got in the playoffs, they were going to the finals. So I think people have a hard time accepting the Cavs taking these natural growth response steps that most teams without a LeBron James would have to take, in that you get into the playoffs, you get the experience, you get beat, you learn from it, and then you take the next natural step. It's very rare that you get a player in his prime like LeBron James where you're just going to have him and then all of a sudden you're going to 4 straight finals without having made the playoffs the year before. So this is a very good, sustainable program that Kobe Altman and the Cavs have going right now, and it's really the type of program that makes sense. So this is how you build, and you just have to build on last season. You can't go in the playoffs and lose in the first round. That's not acceptable. You've got to get there with, assuming you're all healthy or have good health, you got to get there, take that next step, make that next progression. And yes, there's a young team that still has a lot to learn, particularly when it comes to postseason. So I think it's very promising. I think fans should be very excited. And the possibilities, again, even this season with the young team, to me, are endless.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks for having me. We'll talk to you soon.
Sam Amico, make sure you check him out. Hoopswire.com, all things NBA, especially the Cavs, always really good stuff. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.